So this is Susan Purrs with Earth Family TV, and we are here with Reverend Kiama Rockman from Puerto Rico. Well, you're not from Puerto Rico, but you are a pastor in Puerto Rico.
In St. Croix, in the Virgin Islands.
Excuse me, in the Virgin Islands. So, obviously it's been devastated there. Have you received any government support at this point?
We have. FEMA is in there. The Red Cross is in. 127 workers have been sent from, we call stateside, to assist our Department of Public Works and some of the other agencies who are attempting to clear the roads so that folks can move around. But even with all of that help, and the National Guard is based there, plus military presence has been brought in to assist with some of the cleanup and so on and so forth. So we have received some, and there have been some foundations that have been set up so that donations can be directed to them.
But you don't have power there?
No, and it's being predicted that we won't have power for months.
Oh my gosh.
I am in constant communication with individuals on a daily basis, so I'm getting constant updates. So there's a small section on the island, in the east end, called Christiansted. So some parts of Christiansted have power, but the rest of the island still no power. And at one point we had no water.
Oh, wow.
Except for people who have cisterns. But now the water is back on, and they evidently turned it off during the hurricane. This is what we call public water. And one of my friends jokingly said to me, I can't wait until you get back so I can take a shower, even if it's a cold shower, because she has a cistern, but without power, the pump doesn't work, and they have to try to manually get water out of a cistern, and you're not going to get enough to take a shower. You know?
Wow.
Plus, cistern water, oftentimes, most of the time, isn't drinkable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what's the name of your church?
It's the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of St. Croix. We meet in the synagogue, and I've checked in with our Jewish brothers and sisters, and there was some flooding in the synagogue, which they have, for the most part, cleaned up. But there's a great deal of debris. I mean, this Hurricane Marie just slammed us. So there are downed trees and power lines and telephone poles and that kind of thing. I was noticing a message from someone in Australia. Evidently they had some kind of hurricane, or she had experienced one, and she said, hopefully in your rebuilding you will have all of your power lines underground, because that's the biggest problem, is all these downed lines all over the place. Yeah.
Well, and I'm wondering if they'll consider rebuilding the electrical grid with solar.
Well, you know what, on an island, a tropical island where we have so much sun, you would think that would be the case, and I hope that they are thinking like that. We have, I actually have a picture of the solar panels that were all damaged. I mean, the picture is showing them all shattered and scattered and everything. So the solar panels that we did have, in fact, have all been destroyed.
Oh,
and,
wow.
You know, so I hope they are thinking in that direction.
Do you have any wind down there?
Oh yeah.
You have wind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the things I saw on Facebook was that the wind turbines during Harvey were not damaged. They continued to turn.
Huh.
So I'm wondering.
They're
about
only,
wind.
I'm thinking maybe 10, 15. And I haven't, I didn't think to ask anybody about the wind turbines. Yeah.
So you have
whether or not they were damaged.
So even with the help that you have, the devastation is just beyond imagination, from what I understand.
It's even with the help that's coming in, there are still people that can't get out of their houses. obviously, the areas where people are located near a road or neighbors know so-and-so is back down that road,
Oh, wow.
they might go and check on them. But we have a whole rainforest area,
Hmm.
and I don't think anyone has been able to get up in the rainforest. It has to be cleared in order to even get in there to check on residents in the
Wow.
rainforest. So there are areas like that that are very isolated, that are impassable. So, what the workers are doing are trying to clear. That's why we have a 24-hour curfew in St. Croix. First, it was noontime to 4 p.m. Now they've extended it noontime to 6 because the gas lines are 2 hours on the average. The ration line, or when you go to the supermarket, another 2 hours. When you go to the distribution center where you get rations, that's another 2 hours. So although people understand the rationale for the curfew, it was not very helpful to people, and so people were a little fussy about that, but
Because they had to wait for 2 hours for all these different.
And your time, the 4 hours was gone, and you still didn't get a chance to go check, across the
Oh
island
my
on
gosh.
somebody, or to see if the roads were clear enough to go check on this, or, check on a prescription or whatever.
Wow.
And that's the other thing. The Postal Service was just restored a day or so ago. So there's been, and our mail comes through Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's postal service is closed. From my understanding, their airport is still closed.
Oh,
Ours is
wow.
finally opening tomorrow, but if you can just
Tomorrow.
imagine the infrastructure that usually exists for an island, a city, a town, or whatever, has been totally devastated, and just basic things like mail service. People have been sending care packages from the States only to realize there's no postal service.
Oh, wow.
So those packages, they're probably still sitting stateside because there's no place to send them. But good news is the Postal Service is up and running now.
And you said during the service today, because we're at Unitarian Church in Atlanta, the pastor said that 80% of the infrastructure.
80 to 85% of the infrastructure has either been destroyed or damaged.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it will be a wow.
So schools aren't open.
No.
What about hospitals? Are there any operating hospitals?
Our hospital is operational because the patients from St. Thomas were being sent to us, because I'm talking about the devastation on St. Croix. St. Thomas was devastated by Irma. Irma
Right.
passed us over, but Marie is the hurricane that slammed us. I'm telling you this because we were receiving their patients. The hospital and the cancer center were totally destroyed
In St. Thomas?
in St. Thomas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But even with our hospital being operational, we're still having to send patients. I was reading the other day stateside, and they're still doing evacuations, mercy lifts. So they had a ship this past Friday, elderly, disabled in any way, health problems, so on and so forth, people leaving the island.
Well, because a lot of elderly cannot handle not having air conditioning, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you look at the patients in Florida who didn't have air
I
in
saw
that
that.
nursing
That was
home.
so
It's
tragic.
horrific.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
that was really, really tragic.
But
And then if you're disabled, see these distribution centers, I know where they all are, and they all require transportation. So if you're elderly and you don't have access to transportation, and our transportation system, we have what we call taxis. They're like vans. I'm sure there are a few that have managed to get up and running, but for the most part, the transportation system is down. The buses and things, none of that is operational.
Wow.
So if you can just imagine a patient or an individual who has, some health needs and is not able to be mobile, so on and so forth.
Or infants or pregnant women.
And, speaking about pregnant women, so I have a friend who is a midwife, and she was posting that she has grave concern. She also works with HIV patients. She's concerned about them getting their medications. She's concerned about her pregnant patients, on and on and on. And one of the things that conceived from talking with individuals is, so the emphasis has been on clearing the roads. Who is clearing the side roads and the yards and the homes? So I put together this neighbor-to-neighbor program.
Oh, wow.
So we'll go house to house, do an assessment. So if there is a pregnant woman there, we're taking note of that so that that information goes back to the appropriate agency so that they know there's someone in this household with diabetes and they need their medication, or someone is on dialysis and we need to get them out, so on and so forth. So this neighbor-to-neighbor program is going to do in some ways what the public works and other workers are doing for the main roads, except we're taking it one step further. We're doing what we're calling, what are those? Wellness checks. So not only are we planning to have a work team that's going to help clear the road in front of your house and the debris in your yard and the disorder in your home, but we're also doing a wellness check. You know, who resides here? What are the needs? Are they able to get to the distribution center? Do you all have water and rations, so on and so forth? And
That's
just
awesome.
really planning to work with all of the other agencies. So,
That's awesome, just kind of extending their reach.
exactly.
And making sure people are not left out there on their
Right.
without help.
Right, because it's so easy for people to drop
Oh, yeah.
between the cracks. You know, and
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
proud to say that this is being spearheaded by the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of St. Croix, along with other agencies that we're going to be working in partnership with.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Well, tell us about your GoFundMe site. You said you have a new GoFundMe site?
Yes. So I set that up for folks. You know, I'm just looking at the various ways to use social media, and I thought, GoFundMe, this is a viable way. And so I set it up just a couple of days ago, and already donations are coming in. It's amazing how generous and compassionate people are when they recognize there's a need, there's been some kind of natural disaster or whatever. So I have it under Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of St. Croix, neighbor-to-neighbor program, and whatever you're able to donate is greatly appreciated.
So say the address one more time.
It's Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of St. Croix. So I think you put in www.gofundme.com, and then when you get there, then
In the search.
Yeah, Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of St. Croix.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, has your area been designated as a disaster area yet by the United States government?
It has been, from my understanding. That's why FEMA is there.
Okay.
Yes. Now the piece about the president, I'm not really clear on what that little piece is, but I know that we've been declared to the extent that FEMA's there. Red Cross, we had a local Red Cross, but I'm sure that other Red Cross workers are coming in, and like I said, 127 workers from various utility companies stateside are coming. I was just talking to somebody that was here working on the lines, power lines, and I was saying, hey, we need you guys in St. Croix. He said, actually, we are sending some workers. So there are a lot of utility companies that are thinking about sending workers. Our Home Depot has actually been closed since the hurricane. I was talking to the Home Depot, one of the managers here, and he was saying that they were sending some donations and some workers. I said, please send some more generators. There's been a run on generators because without power, people are really depending on generators. So, yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of groups are just kind of doing things on their own. They've just responded because they know the need is there.
Exactly. I have to put in I'm not a sports fan, but I have to put in a plug for Tim Duncan. He is a retired NBA player, and the reason I know about him, even though I'm not a sports fan, is because he was born and raised in St. Croix.
Okay.
he has put out a challenge. He will match the first $1 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow, that's great.
Kudos to Tim Duncan.
And where is that? How can people find that?
If you Google Tim Duncan Foundation,
Okay.
it will take you to it, and he has a special foundation specifically for hurricane relief efforts.
Tim Duncan Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how long ago has it been now? How many weeks has it been since Hurricane Maria came
I
through?
left on the 13th, right after hurricane. Oh, there have been so many.
Irma or Jose?
Hurricane Irma
Okay.
hit. Jose had already hit, and then maybe a day or two later, Hurricane Maria hit. So it's been, let's say, since about the 15th, and I've been stranded the whole time.
So you evacuated.
I didn't evacuate. I actually was going to Cuba,
Oh, okay.
and Cuba got hit by.
Okay. Gosh.
It was crazy. So we were going to all meet up here in Atlanta and then go on to Cuba. And as it turned out, even the Airbnb in Havana, she admitted there was some flooding. I know she would have still loved to have had us. There were 6 of us. But from my understanding, most of their damage took place in the rural areas.
Okay.
But they did have flooding in Havana.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's how I ended up in Atlanta. This was not intentional. I didn't
wow.
evacuate. I actually
wow.
was going someplace.
You were going on a trip.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Was there anything else you would like us to know about what's happening in St. Croix? I mean, there's so many islands that have been almost completely wiped out. I mean, you look at Barbuda.
I was getting ready to name them. Evidently, I mean, I know we've experienced devastation, but they literally have been wiped off the face of the earth, from my understanding.
Have they
I feel
evacuated
so
everyone
bad
from
for them.
Barbuda?
I don't know.
I know that there were many people.
They were working on doing that. Yeah.
Now, about how many people live in St. Croix? Do you have any idea?
Yes, I saw this recently. Was it 60,000 or 90,000? So we'll say 90,000 just to be on the safe side. So we're the physically largest island and the most populated in the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
So there's St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. There's a little place called Water Island, but there's like 2 or 3 families or whatever.
Oh, really
handful
small.
of families on Water Island. So those islands comprise the Virgin Islands, and at this point, they've all been devastated. So Irma devastated St. Thomas and St. John, and there is a small UU congregation and presence on St. John,
Okay.
none on St. Thomas, and then there is ours on St. Croix. So at this point, it's going to, and yet I'm hearing from people who survived Hugo, which was along the level of devastation, although I'm hearing some people say that that Hurricane Maria is even more devastating.
Really?
I didn't experience Hugo, but they're using their experiences to say, you know, we made it through that. The sand came back to the beach. I've never experienced this. After Irma, I went to the, I live right up the street from the ocean. I went down there, and where the sand used to be, there's just rocks and stones.
To pull the sand out.
It just pulled it all out. And I was talking with someone, he said the same thing happened with Hugo. Eventually, it will come back. But it's just shocking. I mean, we're known for our beautiful beaches. And, you know, so.
Yeah, I grew up in Florida, and my parents had a little mom and pop motel on the beach, and we lived through Agnes, which is nothing compared to this. But it did, you know, remove a lot of sand. And there, the Army Corps of Engineers built struts out into the water and then put sand back because it's a big tourist area. So,
well, maybe that's what they're going to do.
And they weren't having to rebuild. You know, the level of damage was bad, but it was nothing like this in terms especially of just the vastness of the amount of people and the power grid and just all the services. There's just no comparison at all. I mean, it's really no comparison. But, you know, so I guess they could put their resources there, whereas in this situation, you're just trying to keep people alive. You're trying to get power, basic infrastructure.
Exactly.
You know, it's totally
trying to restore
totally different.
some modicum of existence to people's lives, you know.
Well, really, I appreciate you taking, you know, a time to talk with us today, and I hope that we can all reach out and continue to try to support, you know, in any way that we can, financially and with our prayers, and any other ways. Are there any other ways that you can think of that?
Your donations are always welcome. Just remember us. Call our name in the universe.
Well, you know, and let me say one other thing too. Climate change. You know, climate change doesn't cause hurricanes, but climate change, according to 99% of the scientists on the planet, it does intensify hurricanes, intensifies the wind, intensifies the water, it intensifies the massive size of these hurricanes. Is just, you know, especially, and then having just this bombardment of multiple massive hurricanes in a row. And another thing that I read too, even with Mexico, you know, having a hurricane and at least two earthquakes, maybe more, that climate change can actually cause those combinations of hurricanes and earthquakes. So, and of course, climate change affects people who are the most vulnerable with, you know, and the least amount of political power a lot of times. And I think maybe another way that we can support all of us, because Florida was almost wiped out by Irma. If Irma had gone straight down the center of Florida, who knows? Florida may have looked like Barbados, you know. It's a Category 5 if it had. You just thank God for the people who are spared, but it's devastating to see the people who are not, you know. And I think so for all of us too, to try to speak out about climate change and speak with our representatives and, you know, not allow this disinformation that comes from oil companies and, you know, billionaires like, you know, the Koch brothers and Exxon who fund this anti-climate disinformation and confusion. You know, I think we need to realize as a family of God and as an earth family of people on this planet, hopefully loving and caring about each other, that it is loving and courageous and right to speak up about conditions that cause these kinds of devastating events.
And I'm glad you mentioned climate control. I have lived in St. Croix for 5 years, never experienced a single hurricane.
Oh, really?
And to have, starting with, I think Harvey missed us completely. Jose, then Irma, then Marie. It's just, 3 back to back. It's just, our president, I hope he rethinks his beliefs about climate change and recognizes it's very serious, you know. And I hope he makes the connections that you articulated, because.
Well, I saw on Facebook there was a meteorologist photograph, and the headline of the article said there was 3. That showed the 3 hurricanes: Irma, Jose, and Maria. I think it was those 3. There's 3 of them in a row, and it said. Meteorologists have not seen this before.
I know.
Not like this. And then the size of Irma. Irma covered almost the entire state of Florida. Width-wise, absolutely bigger. And then lengthwise even, it covered a large portion of the state.
Yeah.
And I have so many family members all over Florida. It was like, no matter where it went, I had people that I loved Yeah, like at some points I had like people in 4 different locations that were still that were at risk all at the same time, and it was like, oh my God, it was emotionally for me, which is nothing, but worrying about them, and then you just, and then thinking about all the people in the islands, and the island populations have been at the forefront of the climate change movement. They really pushed for the Paris Agreement. I didn't realize that. What is it, 2,000 island nations? Is it 2,000?
I'm not sure about all of the details, but
because they've been experiencing climate change and rising seas and just rising tides, and just like Miami is experiencing rising tides, just regular tides, flooding from regular tides, and a lot of the coastal areas are. So they've been affected for a long time. So, I think love means responding to people here and now who are in crisis, who are struggling to survive, struggling to have food, struggling to have power, to be there for each other as community, reaching out with the neighbor programs like you're talking about, trying to get people to safety who are vulnerable. I mean, that's got to be overwhelming, and you'll be in our prayers as you go back, because I know you're going to face a lot. And then also speaking up, and I think it's hard when some of our political officials value greed and corporate profits from oil and gas, which is basically an anachronism. It's becoming an anachronism. They're going to be stranded assets, in the next maybe even 10 years. They're going to be stranded assets because they're just not viable, and they're killing the planet. They're killing so many of us. So, I mean, I think being a person of spirituality, being a person of faith, being a person who cares about your community, it means doing what's right.
Exactly, and you have to speak out, stay informed, and really, we have to take care of our planet. Mother Earth this is all we have, and if we continue to destroy her, she is not going to be able to continue to support us, and we don't seem to make the connection,
Yeah.
But
well, once again, thank you for being here with us, and you'll be in our prayers, and hopefully we'll be able to help you financially.
Okay, thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.